Yeah. Where? Holy Spirit just move. Oh, yeah. Hey, Holy Spirit just move. Why be the camp? 2 by 2 the movement. Let's go. I wanna know your name.
We're gonna be celebrating and doing things for different individuals around, and so my co-host,
Quincy Howard Senior.
yes, my son, he is with me, and guess what, y'all? I'm about to be the co-host.
Yeah,
my son is going to interview moi, so I'm gonna let him take it on over.
Yeah, very excited, man. There's a lot. We just exited out of Black History Month, and I was conversing with my mom, speaking with you. A lot of people don't know. I saw you posting on social media, and I had forgot all about you being East Texas of '87. Just tell me a little bit about that. Did you always want to actually try to do beauty pageants and things like that, or like what inspired that? Like, what made you want to get into that?
Well, when we was kids, we didn't have a whole lot of TV shows to pick from. We had 13 channels, and we had the TV where you had to click.
Gotcha.
So it was just stuff that would just be on, and every year we would all sit and watch the Miss Texas pageant, because we lived in Texas, and then of course it was Miss USA and Miss America. Well, in my mind, I never said it out loud, but in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna be Miss Texas. That's what I'm gonna be, because I didn't really have a gift, I guess, other than singing. I didn't have a special talent. So I was like, one day I'm gonna do it. And so when I turned 15, I began my journey. I was working, I had the money, so I just did it. I didn't tell my mom, nobody. I just signed up and said, okay, what I got to do. And they told me some things that I needed to work on, which was my weight, was one of them. And so I started working on that, but made my first debut.
I'm sorry. Wait. I didn't mean to interrupt, but you say your weight? My
weight was the problem. Back then, they wanted you this big.
You were that big.
Yeah, I know, right? But I wasn't before then. Before then, I was I was your typical Black woman. Now, big thighs, big hips, itty bitty waist. So they were like, you need to lose weight. So I went on a journey, and I weighed like 155 pounds. So I lost 45 pounds, and throughout the summer, I rode my bicycle, like I cut back on eating, like I just was trying my best to get this weight off. And even though I wasn't fat, to me, they were saying it was just the look that they were looking for. So that's when it started. And I began a journey. And each year I got third place, second place, first place, win. So
you say, so talk about this. So you said each year. How many years did you compete? You started when
I competed for 4 years.
Okay.
Until I actually won. And as I was competing, I began to see the process. And after my first year, I was like, okay, I'm Black. I don't think I'm gonna win this thing, and that, because I could just see, it was very few of us trying out. That was one red flag. But I just thought, because it was, in the pageants, that's pretty much all you saw was white women. You didn't see Black women. And if you saw a Black girl, she was bright, like light bright, like she looked white. And so, I didn't care. I was like, well, if I can win this, then cool. But my goal is to go to Miss Texas, and I'm gonna compete for Miss Texas. And that was my goal. I had my mind made up. And I finally won. I won right out of high school. I actually won at 18. And I went on to compete for Miss Texas.
Right out of high school, mama gets the win. I hear you. So, and what year was this? You won Miss Texas?
I won Miss Texas in 87. So
Okay.
I graduated in 85. Of course, it was 2 years later. But in 1987, I finally won. And I went to Fort Worth, Dallas area to compete for Miss Texas, but it was different. By the time I won, I really didn't want it anymore, simply because of all the things that I had experienced. The year before, I was actually supposed to win by tally, with talent, interview gown, like swimsuit. I was supposed to have won, but it wasn't my turn.
Wow.
That's basically, it's based on how much money you raise, the kind of influence you have and your background, things like that. And the fact that I was Black was a problem. So I was the second Black actually to win. Jackie Davis at the time, her married name, I forget her married name, but she was the first Black to compete for Miss Texas as Miss East Texas. And she ended up, they got there and they tore up her gown, put lipstick all over her swimsuit. Like, it was ridiculous, but that was in the 70s, so, but you would think in the 80s, would have been a little different. Now, although I didn't have the problems at Miss Texas, my issue was my own community. And it was challenging to get sponsors. Even though I had, it was a lot of support from some businesses because, they felt like, we're going to win this, so at that time, it's like, it didn't matter that she was Black. If we can get in there and she can win, that'll be good. But it did, it was a lot that weren't crazy about it. My sponsor, she used my money that I had raised to help her husband run for mayor. So I didn't have funds for my gown, my dress. They didn't know how to do my makeup. I had a really hard time. So I had to go out and get a lot of stuff myself. So it was different. It was really, really different.
Wow. Okay. And so when you say you ran for Mrs. Texas and you won, I mean, was your weight no longer a factor? I know you speak about all the other things you went through. I guess the weight is just really kind of bothering me because you see that nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of, even when we scale ourselves and we scale in comparison to like, if you're overweight, it almost seems like the scale is not in favor of brown skinned people, because it's based. I saw mine and it said I was overweight if I didn't weigh at least 100 overweight for me. And I was like, for who? For me? Like, I don't feel like I'm overweight. So
well, their ideal weight was 98 pounds. And I weighed 118.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
When you won Miss East Texas.
When I won Miss East Texas, I was 118. And they wanted me to weigh 98 and under.
So did you not go on to compete for Miss Texas?
I went to Miss Texas, and that's the pictures that y'all saw. I ran for Miss Texas. It was exciting, it was, I did a medley, made the newspaper after my talent. They were like, booming voice came out of this little person from Miss East Texas, Madelyn Renita Bass. I have the articles. I just need to locate them so I can take pictures of those as well and post them. But I made the paper like every day, every night of the competition. Like that next morning I made the front page with, they call it, our swimsuit, it's called, I can't remember the exact word, but showmacking is the gowns that they gave us. And then there's a swimsuit interview where we come to the lobby of the hotel in our swimming suits and we go around like this fountain and we stand there and people take pictures of us. And some of us are selected to be interviewed and we're standing there in our swimsuits. Well, I made the front page. I was right there in the front and you can see me. You could see like stomach was flat, hips was pat out, like Black chick, I was built like Black girl. But, I was right there at the front of everything. Like I always, it seemed like I caught the eye of most the time. You know, I caught the eye of newscasters. So that was a plus for me. So it was exciting. We went to restaurants. We got to sign, you know, different places. And I couldn't tell you what any of them were, but.
So it seems like the narrative back then was, you hear the narrative now that Black people almost have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was what they were basically asking? Do you feel like the weight that was their way of saying, well, let's just find something, you know, 8 pounds. I mean, I don't understand the beauty pageants and things of that nature. And I don't ever want to disrespect the platform at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking, is that something that they were like, well, you know what, you weigh 8 pounds, or is that a legitimate something where if anybody weighed 8 pounds over that weight, whether they were white or Black, they would count?
Weight was one of the criteria, because they feel like at that weight you wouldn't be flabby, you know, there were things you would be attractive in a swimsuit. Like that was basically a thing. But back then, just like models, you know, runway models, they're extremely skinny, simply because you were able to just put pretty much anything on because you were so tiny. But there were scholarships attached to those who won. And most of the time it was to colleges that weren't meant for us. And they just didn't want us there, you know. So if we won and we had the funding, then, you know, we could go to school. But, you know, in the 80s, it's kind of hard to, even that's late 80s, 87, it's hard to imagine some of the things that I was experiencing, even though racism wasn't new to me. You know, coming from a very small town, it was just, I experienced it, I knew about it, it didn't faze me. And so I knew how to work around it, but it's still disheartening sometimes. Like even when I'm sitting here talking to you now, I'm literally shaking because I remember some of the things that, you know, I had to just endure. But, you know, it was just, that was the season we were in, and that's just what we had to do, you know. So being better, working harder, and just making some sacrifices. You know, my mom and my sister, they couldn't even stay in the same hotel. They were supposed to be able to stay in the same hotel as I was. But the lady that was over it, she gave the tickets to someone else, some of her friends. And so Mom and Trina had to drive from Fort Worth all the way back to Dallas every day to come and see me. And then when I got there, you know, they told me I could wear a two-piece. Come to find out, we couldn't. You know, I had to have a one-piece swimsuit. The shoes couldn't be colors; they had to be neutral. So they had to go and find me some shoes and have them dyed, you know, and pay extra. You know, it was just little things like that that she just didn't tell me. You know, she's dead now, and I hate to, you know, I'm not trying to disrespect the dead, but this was just, it was an experience that was after I got there, it was this is not cool, you know. And you know, I'm verbal, but I didn't want to cause any conflict or to sound ungrateful. But it was when I won, people were she better win, you know, white and Black, because my talent was on point. I was super skinny, even though people wouldn't believe that. I told them I weighed 118. It was mostly, I was muscle, I was toned. And you know, I had a lot of, you know, Caucasians, I guess I should use that word, that liked me. You know, I had classmates, friends, and their parents. I was never in any trouble. I was that kid. So they were pleased and okay with me winning, because it was out of the bunch, her talent is gonna get us the crown. When in reality, it didn't matter how good I was. You know, I wasn't gonna win Miss Texas.
So those point systems you're talking about, it was based on talent. It's supposed to be.
They're categories. Mm-hmm.
Categories. And so what I guess I'm asking for those to gain some more perspective is kind of, you know, beauty pageants are, of course, a sport within it, right? There's a lot of things that come with that. It's not though, is it though, weight class, heavyweight, lightweight. So everybody basically would have had to have that. A part of that criteria was the 98 pounds.
98 pounds, and how much money you could raise for the pageant.
Got it. Tell me about that. Do you feel personally that was fair? Being a woman of color, knowing that there are some barriers with consistency that Black women have to kind of overcome, as far as the waist, the thighs, things like that.
No,
do you think
because it was a thing. Like, it was just, that's the way it was back then, you know.
So you don't, okay, ain't that part. You just like, look, man, it just is what it is. There were some other things.
It ain't going nowhere. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Stay tuned for part 2 next week. See ya next week. Hit the like button, subscribe, share.